This is the Perimeter Path, the most recently constructed path. In fact, this section we're walking on right now, I'm still not exactly sure this is where it's going to end up being. The blue path that we just walked, that bench, is right over there across the glen. And this Perimeter Path, as the name indicates, walks the perimeter of the property, essentially. Fence line is right here to the right, and we'll be walking, this is the easternmost portion of the property. We'll be walking north to the northeast corner and then across as we go. This section we're walking through right now is the very first section, the second section, I should say, of the land that I cleared. Most of the 24 acres of woods that we're walking through in these videos, I think I've pruned out and cleared probably 18 of them. Some of them finished like this, some of them with, there's little critter houses everywhere, and some of them with the brush still on the ground. And the vast majority of those 18 acres of clearing, 16 maybe, started just a year ago. I did many acres last year, starting pretty much a year ago, almost today probably. It was last November, with this section, which was just filled with, you can't even imagine. Here's a small portion of this critter pile, this critter house. Right here is just a small portion of the brush that I cut and collected to fill in this little erosion gully. And, you know, of course, we're right next to the burn glen, the glen where we have our bonfires, so the vast majority of everything I cut in here, I've just put on last year's bonfire, and we burned it. But some of it, if a gully was convenient, like right here, I just filled it in and let that slowly over the decades turn into dirt to nourish the trees and thereby all the animals. And so this is a pretty nice path. There's some really neat little surprise features. One of the neat things about clearing land like this with diverse flora, with diverse trees, is you come across some really cool stuff that's just covered up. This was all, there were just brambles all in here. Thorns, brambles, scrub trees, low branches, dead trees. And you clear it all away and you get these really beautiful little holly trees. Isn't that pretty? And part of it was dead at the very top that I cut off, but it's doing really well now that it's opened up and it gets more light, and of course there's no saplings competing for nourishment, and the trees, just all of them, do so well after you clear everything out. And there's less competition, and it just opens right up and everything just grows so much better. Anyway, this is a neat little glen back here, and this is the very last, this is the newest path of all the paths. And like I said, I'm not exactly sure about this one. I feel pretty good about where it's at. It needs a lot of maintenance. It needs clearing. I should need to fill in some holes. You know, when trees die, they leave massive holes like that. You don't want people falling in those, so I got to fill those in. But in general, this is the route I think it's going to stick to. And you can kind of get a feel for, it's difficult to tell, but if you, especially now with the leaves gone, if the leaves are here, you'd be able to tell for sure, but that's the neighbor's land that's untended, and that's relatively open. Normally it's more choked up than that. And then when you clear everything out, it kind of opens into this. Again, not the best season to tell. I'll intend to make another series of videos in the spring, after all the leaves have just come on the trees. It's a really pretty time of year, and it'll be more obvious what I'm talking about in that series of videos. And if we get a surprise snowfall, I'll do a winter set of videos. But I'm not sure that's going to happen. This is a main access road. It was a logging road a long, long time ago. This was logged. It wasn't clear cut. There are quite a few old trees still back up in here, but it was pretty wiped out. Very, very fortunate that it came back as diverse as it did. But you can tell with these big, gravel stones here that this is where the logging road was cut. Huge gully here to the left. I have a walk over, you can see it a little bit. Again, one theory being it's an old lava tube where the top half of it is eroded away, and this is just the bottom half of the lava tube. And yet, in all likelihood, probably an erosion gully from iron ore mining back in the late 1800s. And you can see I've done a lot of brush filling here. This is several years. This is 3 years of work here. I've been working on this section of the land off and on for 3 years, and you can tell that's a lot of brush. And that'll melt down over the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and I'll keep adding to it bit by bit. This is mostly cleared out. It could stand a little more touch-up work here, but that gully should fill right in. Anyway, I just love all the diversity of the trees. Got these neat little cedars that pop up everywhere. These cute little trees. I love these little guys. And the pines here, of course. They're the starter species. When it's wiped out, the pines come first, and they're very, very heavy with relatively shallow root systems, so they end up falling over in storms the quickest, and then nourishing the soil. And then the hardwoods then come thereafter, fill in thereafter. But all sorts of wonderful white oak, red oak. What's that? That's a kind of beech. There's that really pretty tree again. I don't know what this is. If anybody knows, contact me and let me know. I don't know what this is, but it is a really pretty species. Doesn't really get much bigger than this one right here. This is a pretty big one. So it's almost more of a shrub, but I think there are like 3 or 4 different species of beech tree. There's hickory here, water oak, red oak, white oak. What else do we got? A few maples, not many. Some maples. Dogwood, of course. There was a blight that came through and wiped out most of the dogwoods, but they're making a comeback, which is nice. Elm, I believe. We have elm and I think ash. So here's the corner, the northeast corner, and that access road goes through and is on the neighbor's land and forms a network of roads that ends up curving around and joins up with the road that I already pointed out in the last video, and that I'll point out in the next video, or this one. We're coming up to it pretty soon here, where the cemetery is. So you can drive up there and make it to the cemetery. They used to drive through here to maintain it, but they don't anymore, so I just put some fence posts there and painted them orange just to kind of make sure people know where the line is. And I wasn't going to have a critter pile there, but that big stump got put there. There was some work done by a backhoe, and that huge stump right there just got dropped there. And I was like, all right, I can't move that. So I just gathered some dead wood, and it actually, makes a nice little buffer on the hill here. This was carved out to make a turnaround. The access road comes up here, and you can drive up here and turn around on this little plateau they made. You see, kind of falls off there. Yeah, and that's where we just walked from right there, back down the road. I used to have the perimeter path going up here to that little ridge and kind of walking down the ridge as opposed to being on the road. And it was fun, but it just, it was only 10 feet to the left, so I just figured I'd stick with the road. These railroad ties, this is how I cut the railroad ties to size. You can cut one railroad tie, cuts to 3 sections of 34 inches, and so that makes a nice almost 3-foot stair. And this stairwell here is rotting out, and it wasn't built exactly correctly. As opposed to 4 stairs, it needs 5. And it really is kind of a trip hazard. So I'm going to knock all these old rotting ones out, throw them in the gully probably to stop the erosion, and use the rebar pins that are here and remake these stairs. It'll be 5 stairs kind of coming up this way a little bit, so it'll curve to the plateau up here. But, you know, that's a someday thing. This was a lot of fun clearing out this glen. This is a really pretty, just a beautiful, beautiful section of land. And just a year ago, you could not see 5 feet in any direction here. It was all 4 to 8 foot sweet gum saplings. And I can't even find the sweet gum tree. I'm looking around. I still can't see a sweet gum tree here that would drop all those seeds, but they're just sweet gums everywhere. You couldn't even, I swear, you couldn't see 10 feet in any direction. And so I got in here, just cleared it all out, and just lovely. It's just a lovely, lovely corner. And then there's a nice critter house. You can barely even see it. That's a pretty big critter house. That one's probably 2 years old. And then, you know, you took the big stuff first, and then the medium-sized stuff, and you cover it with the beech boughs, you know, to give it extra shelter. And then, of course, the leaves fall on it, and it just kind of provides shelter for probably a couple of decades before it melts into dirt. Oh yeah, on we go. This is just stuff I cut about a year ago. I just haven't got to it. I have to make a pile somewhere, put it somewhere. That's a really pretty little beech tree right there, kind of glowing. That beautiful color. That's how all the beech trees here looked about 4 days ago. And then I thought, oh, it's going to be perfect when I make this video. And over the weekend, most of the leaves fell. The beech trees just turned and boom, gone. And they just turned into this stuff. This is a beech tree. It turns into these brown leaves. But that's how they looked about 4 days ago, all of them. So someday in the fall, I will do this walk again when there's not so much of a drought and the pretty foliage, you know, sticks around longer, and I'll be able to capture that. Because it really, especially with light like today, it is something else when it comes through the beech trees. The whole place just glows. It's really, really something. Still beautiful though. Still quite lovely. I don't know exactly when I made this path, but it has stayed pretty much the same. Its route hasn't changed much. At the end of the path, at the end of this video, the last section of it, there is a place that where the route had to shift. I'll talk about that in a minute. But I was gonna, you know, make stairwells. These roots make some pretty nice stairs, as is, but still pretty steep right here. So I was gonna take some of these really, really old, these are old cedar fence posts when the land was divided up. And I yanked them all out on the old property lines, and I made stairs out of them with the rebar pins there, you can see. And they don't rot, so they stay forever, and yet that's a really tiny stair, so they really don't make the best stairs. Ideally, I would replace all those with someday with railroad tie. But anyway, that was when you see stuff like that, and you'll see at the end of this path, on the back end of the perimeter path here, you'll see a huge staircase I made using those cedar posts. This tree is really cool. It's one of my favorite trees on the property, this cherry tree. And it has fallen significantly just in the last few months. It's very, of course, you know, all the weight of it is there, and it was hung up in that, what is that, an ash? A couple of baby immature ashes, and there's a hickory and an oak, and it was hung up in there, and it was holding it up, and it started to slip this year, and I don't know exactly if I can save it and prop it up. Maybe I can get some, you know, a 6x6 or something and sink it right there and kind of prop it up right there so it doesn't fall over, but I think it's close to going. It's such a pretty tree. I mean, if it does go, it goes, and cherry's great firewood, but I kind of would like to keep it. So I'll think about that. Maybe I can save that. Over here to the left, you can't really tell, but this is the last wild section of the property, which is pretty representative. Maybe I'll walk over here and you can see. Pretty representative of how crazy thick it was here before I started work on the land. Yeah, this is pretty representative. So most of the land of the 24 acres, and like I said, 16 of it I've already cleared out, but most of the 24 look like that. Not necessarily quite that bad. There are a lot of baby pines here that got blown over, as you can see. I got to get in here and chainsaw those up and clear that out. This will be the last section that I clear. I got to work the ridge from down here all the way up to here. This is the last 4 to 5 to 6 acre section right along this ridge here. Right over this ridge in that direction is the base of that mossway path from the last video, from the blue path, just to orient you if you're interested. But some beautiful trees here, and once this all gets cleared out, you know, and a couple of these scrub pines drop to let more water and nutrients and sunlight for the other trees, it's gonna be this is a real nice section. You can tell it'll be really, really, really beautiful. Of course, I won't drop any pines where there's a nest in them. Quite a few pines, you can see. Animals love to nest in pine trees, so I never cut down a pine tree with a nest in it. But there are quite a few that I can cut down here that are immature, kind of in the way. It's a nice oak tree right there, isn't it? Look at that. Isn't that pretty? That's a pretty tree. And here's a nice beech. That's a middle-aged beech tree. Look at that foliage. That's nice. Right? I don't know how old that is. It's not old. That's not a big beech tree. Is that 6 inches in diameter? So, but I love these species of beech, whatever it is. I really love these trees. They make this beautiful canopy. Just lovely. Just lovely. Light, you know, shines through them like that. Isn't that something? Just imagine the whole forest like that. 4 days ago. 4 days ago, the whole forest was like that. Next year, maybe. Next year, maybe I'll catch that. Every year's different, you know. Some years the leaves stay for a long time. Some, you know, the colors are sometimes more vibrant, sometimes less. Sometimes they stay on the trees for a long time. Sometimes they just drop overnight. There's that cherry tree from up top. You can see it. Isn't that something? And it's been decades. It's been like that. It's just started to fall. In fact, is it splitting? No, it's not splitting. I think I could save it. We'll see. We'll see. We'll put that on the list. There's some, you can see the fence post right over there. So we're right on, walking along the northerly, not exactly, but the northerly line of the property, northeast. And there used to be quite a few really old cedars here that were logged, and they left the tops. See this? That is the top from a cedar tree that was logged for boards, I guess, and or firewood, I don't know, but they would leave the tops. I don't know why. And the moss loves them, so you can walk in the woods and you can find all these cedar tops. And there's a really big cedar right up here, just covered in moss. So I try to find them and get them closer to the path for people to see. But that's really nice right there, isn't it? Isn't that real nice? So, ooh, don't fall over, dude. And then sometimes you can gather these cedars. I'm trying to manufacture moss here. These are all old cedar. And you can kind of see the moss is starting to take hold. Ideally, over the next 50 to 100 years, that would just be a mound of, you know, cedar-fed moss. That's the idea anyway. I don't know if it's going to work, but that's why I gathered those and left them there. A guy named Tim used to work on this land, tending it, not the same way I do, but similarly, and he got me onto that idea. But look at this cedar tree. Isn't this something? So this one wasn't logged at all. It just fell over in a storm, it appears. That's the whole tree. And it's just got beautiful moss on it, all the way down. That beautiful tree, that was something else for sure. Yeah. So of course we leave that there because it's so pretty. And coming up here, we're coming up to another one of those liminal areas where you cross a line from tended to untended, which is sometimes interesting to see. It got a really powerful effect coming the other direction. So in the next video, I'll walk this backwards in silence. And when you get up to here and you come from the wild, untended part into this part, it really is just a very peace-inducing feeling. So here it's very interesting because, you know, just 10 feet to the left there, I haven't even started work. I got about 100, 150 feet down the ridge that I haven't messed with this whole ridge long here. It's really probably is 4 to 6 acres. And so you can kind of tell here, we're on the fence line. This is the property line right here. The barbed wire fell down, but it's right here is the property line. And you can tell looking in there just how wild it is, and just filled with immature trees and brambles and vines and dead trees and fall. You know, it's kind of messy. And that's how a lot of this looked before I started working. And so starting right about here, for a while here, I haven't done too much pruning, so you'll be able to tell the difference. So yeah, you really can tell the difference. It's just something else. But it is fun work clearing it out. I'm really excited to get to this. I want to finish picking up everything I've cut in the last 3 years. That's going to take several months, but maybe in January I'll be able to get to this section here and prune it all out, so that if I make a winter video set in February, maybe you'll see this all at least pruned. We'll see. Certainly the goal is by the spring to have all 24 acres looking like the finished sections you've already seen. So we'll see if that pans out. Do what we can do. Just keep plugging away. It's been about anywhere between, I tried to work out how long this has taken, and I know it's been over 3,000 man hours to do this over the last 3 years. Probably more. I wasn't really keeping track. But it has been fun. I really, really, really have enjoyed it. So here we are on the property line now. This is one of those access roads. This road connects to that corner road on the property back there that I was just talking about. Comes up here to an intersection and cuts left, goes right up to the cemetery, which I talked about in the last video. And then here, this is going to be an interesting liminal border again, because just in about 10 feet, you're going to feel it. We go from this unpruned, which I think is pretty, and this is without leaves. I mean, if there are leaves here, you wouldn't see anything. And then right about here, you can tell, is where I just started, doing some serious pruning. I still have to pick up a lot of the stuff that's on the ground, and yet you can kind of tell it's a lot more open. I still have a little bit more of the small stuff to cut out, but these are interesting. I never have figured this out. These are yucca plants, or some kind of this is like a southwestern, I don't know what in the world these are doing here. So cool. But they're little gems like this all over the place, where you just walk along and you'll see a plant like, what the heck is that doing here? So I love those little guys. They're nowhere else on the property. So I'm not sure what that's all about, but pretty cool nonetheless. And then in the spring, hopefully I can catch it in the spring series of videos. There's a ground cover here, which I guess you can see if I brush across some of these. See that ground cover right there? And that blooms in the spring. It blooms. It's like a carpet of little white flowers all up here. And it's been the more I open it up, of course, the more it'll spread. So hopefully, 10, 20 years, this will just be a carpet of this ground cover up here. All just a carpet of flowers in the spring. That'd be pretty cool. And that same ground cover, I don't know if you can see, if you pan right towards the cemetery, a property line is right here, and the cemetery is right up there. And of course, on the ground, I don't know if you can tell, but if you look closely, that ground cover is all the way to the top of the hill. It goes all the way to the cemetery. So it is headed that, maybe it started in the cemetery and is working its way downhill. Not sure. There's a cool little holly tree. Look at that. Beautiful. Just beautiful. So here we are. Now we're, property kind of heads along here. And then the northwest corner of the property. Now these directions are not exact, but in general, we're looking at the northwest corner of the property is along this little, this used to be an access road. You can kind of see it goes onto the neighbors through there. And I'm trying to purposefully block it off so that's, in the 20 years ago or so, we did have a little problem with people doing forerunners through here and motocross bikes. So I'm going to take all of these big chunks that I have been knocking down and dicing up with chainsaw, and I'm going to be picking all this stuff up, all of it, all this big stuff. You'll see it when we walk past. I've cleared this all out with the chainsaw and the loppers about 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to stack it all up on the property line right there on this road so that, you know, people don't drive through here anymore, because, you know, it's fine if people are going to do that with their property, but this is supposed to be peaceful property, walking property. Contemplative property. That's my take on it anyway. That's the way I see it. So, not loud motocross bike property. So this section of the land really was a mess just about a month ago, and I never thought it would look this good. And this took quite a bit of work, but I have quite a bit to pick up, as you can see. And it'll be just lovely when I finish picking it up. But it opened up really nice, really nice, this northwest corner. And it just, you couldn't see through there at all. And it really had a kind of a choked off feeling, kind of a claustrophobic feeling up here in this corner. And I'm really happily surprised with how nicely it opened up. These bottles have been here, who knows, these at least since the property was purchased by Mom back in '90. And these are all old beer bottles from who knows who was working up here doing whatever, and they just left their bottles, and they grow moss in them, so there's moss all in them right now, which is kind of cool, so we just left them. So headed downhill here. And you can tell all the work I've been doing here, all these old pines that fell, and you just dice them up, and then I'll have to either try to consolidate them with a critter pile I've built over here, or I'll make another one, or try to drag them uphill to that property line pile I was talking about. I'll figure something out. Yeah, that's one of the tricks, is if you don't have a gully handy, you know, how are you going to consolidate your cut stuff to make your critter houses? That's always kind of fun, figuring out the best place to put them. And here we are coming to, again, a section of the land that we walked in the last video. Because there is one section of the land, the property line, I don't know if you can see it. I walked it, I found the pins the other day, and I set these stakes in it with the orange tips on them along the property line. So the property line kind of runs that way. So this section of the path we're on right here is the perimeter path, but also part of the blue path. There's the mossway. Remember that from the last video, walking down there. And this heads back up towards that octagon table I was talking about in the last video. So this is the blue path and the red path together, just for, you know, 100 yards or so. Look at the light through there. Isn't that nice, huh? That is really nice. I'm about to run out of battery. Hopefully the battery will survive. It's on red. And if it does die on me, I'll just remember where I am. And I think I have a backup battery in the truck, so maybe I'll just pick up where I left off. It's such a nice day. I would like to have all these videos done on such a glorious day like today. Here's all these cedars I was talking about. These mossy cedars, and I used them to kind of line a lot of this path. I'll try to show more of that when I walk this back in silence, the silent part of this walk, when I walk it in reverse in a second. Yeah, so this portion of the path, the perimeter path, I made, I want to say 10 years ago, and this has changed a little bit, this section right here. It's always, I've been trying to kind of figure out which way to go, but I feel really, really good about its current route. So this path, in all likelihood, will stay exactly as is now. It flows really nicely. There was a change. I had to alter it recently. I was working up here, and I had built it differently, the path differently, because I wasn't exactly sure where the property line was. And I had the path taking a right turn right here. And you can kind of see where I had it going. I had it going right here, and it went straight ahead to where you kind of see those logs piled up there, and then there's kind of an access road that continues on in that direction. And I thought, oh, okay, cool, this is kind of handy. Well, it turns out that's just over the property line. And one day there was a guy doing a motocross route up here, riding his motocross bike, and I waved him down. I'm like, hey, what's going on? And we had a nice chat, and he said he was riding the perimeter, what he thought was the perimeter. The neighboring owner owns 20 acres right there, and they were trying to ride the perimeter. And so we found the pins together, and I figured out that I had made a mistake, and I had put the path over on the wrong land. So then I decided, okay, I'll rewalk it, I'll make it new. So I turned left here, and I go here, and I went this way. So all of this path I just adjusted and just recently made. This is fresh, and it turns out to be much more beautiful. It really is. There's a wonderful ridge up here, really lovely. And so this, it was a real blessing in disguise. Met a nice guy, and set a better path on the land as opposed to on somebody else's. So anyway, so I just pruned this out, well, I don't know, a week ago. And so this is a kind of an interesting look at how this is how it looks right after I prune it out. I've collected a lot of the bigger stuff, you can see, to make kind of a wall. So I've made a wall starting right there on that property line pin, and then the motocross track is right on the other side. That's the property line. And so I stacked all the big stuff, which you can kind of see, all down here. It goes about, I don't know, 200 yards. And then I put the medium-sized stuff on top of it, and then the brush on top of it, and it makes this really cool little wall, which I'll show you in a second. There's a really cool little cedar. Look at that beautiful cedar. Isn't that lovely? Yep. So anyway, so we'll flow along here. And when I change the battery and come back for the silent walk, I'll take my time a little more and pan around to show you how pretty it is. The light is just ideal today, so I'm definitely going to do that. But then you can kind of tell, we're getting a little closer now to the property where I can kind of show you more clearly what I'm talking about. Right, where I stack up the big stuff down there, and then I put some medium-sized stuff on top of it, and then I put brush on top of it. So let me get down here and I'll show you what I'm talking about. See? So that's kind of what I made there, that wall. And eventually I'll have it all, that entire line, all the way back up there, will end up looking like this. right? Which is pretty cool. It's a convenient way, a handy way to kind of separate the property. Now, if the next door neighbor was using his land for a similar way that, you know, I was creating these paths, you know, more peaceful, contemplative, non-motorized, then of course I would find a different place to put all that brush. But it turned out to be real convenient. So makes a nice barrier. They're nice people. They can do what they want to do over there on that side, and it's kind of I don't know, has a good feel to it. It kind of encapsulates the space, you know. There's another little access road turn off right here. And this is another road where they used to come through with forerunners and motocross bikes. So that is a massive wall of brush. That's a 4-foot tall wall of logs covered by brush right there, because it's a ravine, as you can see. And then this is just, you know, 1 to 2 feet of logs covered by brush that runs all the way up where I was talking about. And this is lovely. I'm going to pan around here. I just have faith. I've only got another 100 yards or so of walking to do to get down to the bottom of the hill and finish this video, and I'm having faith that there's going to be enough battery power in the camera. So let's give it a whirl and see what happens. And if not, I'll replace the battery and I'll finish it with the backup battery. So now we're at technically the northwest corner of the property. And this is where I built that huge staircase 10 plus years ago using those cedar fence posts that I was talking about. So this is all the neighbor's land. The property goes right to there, and it flows, all the property line goes right down the hill there. And this is a huge staircase that kind of weaves its way down, which we're walking down right now. And you can see what happens with these cedar fence posts. They just kind of disappear into the dirt. They'll never rot, but they just stop being stairs because they're so thin. So eventually I'm going to have to replace them all with railroad ties eventually. There's some nice, really pretty beech trees here. Look at that beech tree. Look at that. That's like 3-foot diameter beech tree right there. That is something up there. My goodness gracious, look at that. Lovely. That is an old tree right there. That is an old tree. Anyway, on we go. Get to the bottom of this hill, and then this commentary video of the perimeter path will be done. Got these nice little ferns everywhere. Some of these stairs, as you can tell, have held pretty good, you know, for a decade. They're just a little too small. But cedar is amazing. It does not rot, so they'll be here for a long time if I don't change them out. This is what happens with pine trees that blow down in the storms. They make these huge root balls. And then I tend to, when I find these in the woods, this is a great thing to make your critter houses around, because animals like to burrow into the root balls there for the pine trees that fall over. All right, we're coming down to the bottom. And that is it. So, I think it looks like the camera did it. Son of a gun. Fantastic. Okay, so that's the commentary video of the perimeter path. Now, the perimeter path itself continues to the right here, all the way to the front, all the way to the lawn portion of the front part of the property. But it's joins the spring path that walks along the spring. This is the freshwater spring, one of the 7 springs that feeds the lake. So this will be in the next video. There's one more loop to do. So I won't continue, even though the perimeter path does continue all the way down there. I'm going to stop right here. So that's that. So again, any questions, email me rediscoveringpeace99@protonmail.com. If there's anything you want to know about that I haven't answered, and I'm now going to go change a battery on the camera and walk the same path in reverse in silence, so for you to enjoy whenever you want. All right. Peace out.